Welcome to my first live event. This is gonna be an experiment, more or less. We're gonna have a little bit of fun. If anybody has any questions, we're gonna address those questions. All right, good. Bobby has a good question. What are my thoughts on Multicloud? Let me just figure this out. It looks like everybody wants to jump on the Multicloud wagon. Well, there are two factors for Multicloud that are pretty much drivers for any business. Number one, it is having the ability to, be a bit more resilient if you have any kind of issues with one cloud provider. And that is definitely a good approach to do things, right? I would say multi-cloud is definitely an option when you want to ensure that your application is much more reliable. Being vendor agnostic has never been a bad idea. That means that you're deploying everything with an open source standard approach, right? It's the old VHS versus Betamax, or that approach where one or what is that Sony, like flash card versus SD card, right? Flash memory versus SD card. So yeah, I mean, there are definitely benefits of having a vendor solution that's fully integrated, easy to use, right? So when you use AWS, for example, you're going to be happily using services within the AWS that tie to each other, talk to each other very easily. It's very easy to configure them. There's, hundreds or even thousands of tools that you can use. And the bad thing about it is potentially you're exposing yourself to vendor lock-in. Potentially you're exposing yourself to a vendor-based issue, resonating across your whole environment. Now, depending on the design of the environment with the cloud provider, you could actually mitigate that. So for example, if you choose to run in multiple regions in AWS, you're essentially in multiple clouds with most services. Not all, so there are tiny little specifics, but with most services, if you base your application across multiple regions, you're technically multi-cloud already. But being multi-cloud isn't just about being in multiple locations. As I said, the other factor is vendor lock-in, right? You use some kind of unified approach to address these platforms, and you get the benefit of optimizing your design so that you can run on premises, you can run on just typical standard virtualization platforms, or you can go to public cloud. So you've got choice. Now, it's not as easy. It definitely takes more effort. It will take a bit more integration, and depending on your integration tool or the tool that you use to make these uniform calls to multiple platforms, it will be a bit of a learning curve. Jude, what do you think about CloudFormation versus Terraform? Exactly. Yeah, very good question. CloudFormation is a tool for infrastructure as a service that's built into AWS, right? It is Tosca compliant. So Tosca is the topology standard for open source cloud applications, right? So Tosca is essentially the baseline foundation for making sure that your structure of the language and the way you reference objects in your language is interoperable with other Tosca compatible tools. So potentially other tools can use CloudFormation, but CloudFormation is designed as purely an infrastructure management tool for AWS, right? You can't take a CloudFormation template and push it into another cloud provider. You can push it onto different cloud platforms. So for example, CFN templates work well with OpenStack. You can take your CFN templates and you can deploy them onto OpenStack. However, the interoperability is, you know, it's there, but it's not all the way. So especially when you go into serverless application model, then that's way out of scope of what OpenStack can do for you. Whereas Terraform, on the other hand, it's great when you want to have that multi-platform approach where you want to have a unified scripting against multiple platforms, where you're not doing vendor lock-in like you were doing with CloudFormation. Not that CloudFormation is really that much of vendor lock-in, right? Because it's JSON or YAML. Any other cloud will take JSON or YAML constructs, and you can easily translate automation templates from you know, specific oh, you know what, we can take this one away. Just a second, I have an idea. I'm actually running 2 layers here, so this is going to speed up the process a little bit. Where was I? Oh yeah, Terraform versus CloudFormation. So when we talk about CloudFormation as a tool, yeah, it's specifically for AWS, but it also can be easily translated into any other speak. Now, if you want to test this out, I have a really cool little tool. So for example, you're in AWS, right? You're running something in AWS and you want to see how that would work in another platform. So let me just show you this. Let's try to stay. There we go. There I am. The bottom of my screen, am I? Or am I just streaming video? Yeah, okay. What I have in my browser is this little thing called a console recorder for AWS, right? And console recorder for AWS is really cool. It's a plugin for Chrome or Mozilla. And when you run something through the console, it will automatically build script for you, right? So for example, it will build right now there's nothing here. It'll build a CloudFormation template for you. It'll build a Terraform template for you, Troposphere. It'll extract CLI commands from your environment. Let's take a look at how this works. So let's log into console. All right. Let me just log in here. All right, so management console here. Whoa, what am I doing? Yeah, I'm clicking on the wrong window here. Just a second. Come on, switch to camera. There we go. All right. Yeah, this is better, sure. So that you can see me click anything. All right. Let's do this thing. First, what I want to do is I want to enable this guy to record, right? So I want to click on my icon, and it's going to say console recorder is now recording, right? So what I want to do is I'm just going to run an EC2 instance, launch instance, right? Simple task, not something complicated here, right? I'm just going to go through like very, very simple task. Just something that just launches some resource, right? And if I go to console recorder, okay, now that's strange. Okay, let's refresh this guy. Yeah, okay. If I go to console recorder, this guy says, you know, I've caught this script. So what it's done is it's figured out I went to create a security group and I went to create an EC2 instance, right? What kind of EC2 instance, what kind of volume, what the volume size. These are just the defaults, but look at what it's done, right? It's giving me a nice little CloudFormation template. Now, I want to do the same thing in Terraform. Boom. There's my Terraform template, right? There's my Terraform template. It's doing the same thing. As you can see, to transcribe these guys, right, one format to another, it's not that difficult, right? So resources here, security group, description and group name, doesn't matter. VPC ID is a certain ID. And in Terraform, resource AWS security group, that's the ID, description and name, and then VPC ID, right? Same thing. It's like so simple to translate because these use the same kind of, well, close to the same programming language. Here we're talking more structure. Well, CloudFormation has the same structure if you put it in JSON. And of course, my resource, my instance here, right? AMI ID, key name, instance type, and the volume size and features, same thing as in CloudFormation right here, right? So translating between these guys, EC2 instance, AMI ID, key name, instance type, device name for the volume, right? So when we talk about translation between these things, it's pretty easy, right? It is super easy. What this console recorder does for you is got the CLI, right? So it can pull all the CLI commands. So if you don't like to deploy stuff with your specific templating tool, you can always go to command line, right? Command line essentially is giving you, again, you know, poor man's automation, bash scripting, right? Again, what you can do is you can pull out code. Here it's doing the same thing in Python, right? It's doing the same thing in JavaScript. It's doing the same thing in Go, right? And this is the next level of abstraction and of cloud independence, is take the actual inputs and then create your environment with your code, right? Take the SDKs from these different cloud vendors and then use the code to deploy. Yeah, CloudFormation, Terraform, Troposphere, CDK is good. You can do everything in CLI, right? And this thing also has a nice feature. If you have IAM, it gives you what kind of security was required to perform this action. So really cool tool. All right. Let's see, next question. I don't know if that answers the question, what's better. Okay, what do you think about cloud? We started using CDK in place of CFN templates. It is definitely helping us with the CNF maintenance nightmares. Yes, CDK definitely makes a lot of sense. definitely makes a lot of sense. CFN is pretty cool. Please read this coordinates 39.019 and then minus 81.11. C2PT2N, what are those coordinates? I don't know. Jude, in regards to CI tools, what would you advise? Jenkins seems to have monopolized the market. I would definitely agree. Yeah, Jenkins seems to definitely be kind of everywhere. You do have the whole CI tool chain in AWS, right? You got the code tools. So if you're in AWS, you got the code tools. In Azure, you got the Azure DevOps. I don't remember what it's called in Google Cloud. Anyway, like options galore for CI tools. What would I say about CI tools? Well, definitely I think that CI tools are something you need to something you need to sort of have that will adapt to your code, right? So what kind of code are you writing? What kind of deployment testing you're going to be doing on that code? That will all depend. Yeah, code pipeline. Yeah, all the code tools are orchestrated with code pipeline is a great approach. Now, in some cases, what we see is clients actually opting for containerization instead of just having CI centralized, where basically the developer does part of the job on the actual laptop, right? When the developer builds the container, they just do it on the laptop. Use the local power of the laptop and just shoot containers up straight into the environment, straight onto the registry for containers, whether that's your private registry in ECR or something like that, or it's a registry in something like Docker Hub, doesn't really matter. So containers developed in the registry get committed, right? So there's two things. They commit the source code and then they register the container. Now the source code can always be used to reconstruct and update and do whatever needs to be done with that container. And then the actual container is then just fed into like the pre-production testing, things like performance vulnerability and whatever else needs to be done. So instead of running, for example, a CI approach, everything is containerized, and like there's no need for the CI server. There's no need for build stages because the container gets built on the laptop. So they're saving money in the cloud because they're not running. Not that that's expensive, right? Running build servers is not really that expensive, but still, it is some compute capacity. And when you're doing very, very frequent iterations, it makes sense. Bobby, can we expect some videos related to Google Cloud on your channel? Yes, you can. It is. So I recently became a cloud authorized trainer, authorized Google Cloud authorized trainer, which is quite a process. So it takes quite a few months to get through that whole stage. You need to pass a cert, and then you pass a demo teach, and there's some stages in between, and each stage takes a few weeks to schedule and set up. And so I'm still at the stage where I know the infrastructure pretty well, but I'm still exploring other services. So as I'm building my knowledge, slowly knowledge will sort of stream out of me onto the channel, and I will be adding Google Cloud Platform stuff to the channel also. That definitely you can expect some videos on that. Jude, have you looked at OCI? If so, what do you think? Do they stand a chance to get on the top 4? Why do people choose Oracle Cloud? That's a good question. I think that they have a chance to become a real significant player, but they will need to invest a lot of money into the cloud infrastructure itself, the actual physical capacities of data centers. Why is AWS basically very much far ahead of the others? Well, I'll tell you one thing, right? So the way modern cloud providers are building their solutions is newer cloud providers are bringing the solution is they're a platform provider or a service provider, and they're also adding infrastructure. The way AWS started was from the ground up. They started with the infrastructure. They figured out the infrastructure over a long time, went through a few very painful cycles to build the infrastructure to what it is. And they've been around for 14 years now. And in the 14 years, they've accumulated a massive amount of infrastructure, the data centers, the capacities, the actual buildings. The thing about cloud is you think, okay, yeah, you just buy some computers and you put them somewhere in some kind of data center and you run them. It's not that is easy, right? The thing is, if you want proper scale, then you have to build data centers. If you're just depending on providers for your capacity, the providers are limited in how much capacity they can offer you. And a lot of providers are not designed for cloud. They're not designed for cloud because they're designed for a certain enterprise approach to computing where you've got, the standard rack with the 2 power bars with the 10 kVA input per rack, which means, it's not optimal. With cloud, what you want to do, you want to make many data centers and tie them into an availability zone and have many availability zones and have many regions. And with many availability zones, you can actually afford a complete shutdown of a data center. So what you're doing is you're pushing those data centers to a much, much higher performance level than you would with a typical enterprise grade data center, right? The way the data centers were designed before cloud is, everything runs at 50% so that you can withstand a failure and still run everything at 100%. But day to day, you're running actually at 50% capacity. Is that economical? No, it's not. What you want is the most capacity out of your square footage as possible. So what you want is you actually want to run everything at 100% all the time, but have so many replicas of these systems that run 100% that if one fails, you're still running because there are 4 others to take that load, right? So with all the other cloud providers, not all. So why I chose Google Cloud as my next sort of step into training, into certification, into getting into another cloud. Why did I choose Google Cloud? So let me give you a little bit of my history going back, way back. My first cloud sort of experience is back from 2009, wherein I built a sort of virtualization solution that we rolled to a public cloud solution for a small, what is now a cloud provider. This was sort of my first jump into cloud, providing infrastructure as a service in a sort of semi-self-service approach, and then trying to build self-service into that, which was a cool experience. And then I started working with AWS in parallel and comparing features that we had, comparing features that AWS had. And then on top of that, I started thinking, okay, is there an open source solution? And I found OpenStack. Well, I was actually asked to work on a project that had OpenStack included in there. And then everybody said, what is OpenStack? And I said, yeah, I'll go and learn, right? So I went for a course, learned about OpenStack, started working with it. And then the more I worked with OpenStack, the more questions I got, but how does this compare to AWS? And then I said, well, I got to get deep into AWS, right? And now sort of my focus in the last 5 years has shifted more to AWS. And it's been more AWS. And now I'm getting questions like, but how does this compare to GCP? And I'm like, okay, let's switch gears again and try to learn about this additional product here, this additional vendor. There's some comparison to Azure, because Azure is per capacity per their yearly revenue. They're sort of number 2. But in my customer base, there seems to be more interest into GCP, so that's why I chose that. And the way I've never liked the process of becoming a Microsoft certified trainer. However, maybe someday I will. I kind of have it in my long-term goal to also figure out that part. But again, there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of certification, there's a lot of practice to be had, and it's a time-consuming process. So I might start that maybe this year or beginning of next year. So why did I choose GCP over Azure? Well, it's just first it was client influence, and the second thing was the design of the cloud infrastructure, right? They have a more of a unlimited capacity oriented approach, right? A region with a huge amount of capacity and a very large amount of data centers or availability zones, in the same way as AWS. Whereas Microsoft's Azure solution has more of a many regions approach, right? But a region might be just one single availability zone, but then some regions have multiple availability zones. And when you have a lot of small pieces, it's like when you have a lot of small servers versus having a few huge servers. Yeah, if a huge server goes down, then I have a huge outage. If a whole availability zone goes down, I have a huge outage, but I can expand my application on a big server much more than on very many small servers. So am I making sense here? I don't know, hopefully. So yeah, Oracle, back to Oracle. So why am I saying Oracle needs to invest a lot into infrastructure? It needs to invest a lot into infrastructure because you need to have that capacity for customers who come in to just expand to infinity, right? You can't be saying, sorry, I need to throttle you because we have a virus outbreak across the globe. That doesn't shed good light on cloud at all. I used to think that a good position was Alibaba Cloud, right? They had a good sort of position with their sort of a ton of investment money going into the cloud and infrastructure being built really fast, but then it just kind of stayed at the same place, right? They sort of are focusing on Asia. So, with their, 7 regions or whatever they have in China, that's their focus. So if you are in China, then your players are much more limited from you're much more limited to just either using Alibaba or maybe the 2 regions that AWS has or the few regions that Microsoft has. So yeah, I mean, it's number 4. There's quite a race. And then there's IBM, right? IBM's cloud is also a solution that's growing rapidly, and they're investing a lot of money into that. As a server manufacturer, as a vendor, they're good in infrastructure, but they have a big benefit of these. All the clients that used to be on their platforms are now sort of being offered good approaches to start working in their cloud environment, and they have the Watson. They got the quantum computer, which is kind of unique, right? So they have some unique, and they're definitely a good niche player. Why are you not teaching on platforms like Udemy, Pluralsight, or LinkedIn Learning, if I may ask? We'd love to see you on one of these platforms. Because I'm an authorized instructor. And you choose whether you want to be an authorized instructor and teach the official material, or you choose other material, right? When you become an authorized instructor, you go through a bunch of checks. They verify your knowledge. You do demo teaches, and then you deliver content that is created by the vendor. So when I deliver content, all the content is created by AWS Training and Certification. So it's like going to AWS and getting a training from them. When you go to Google Cloud, the same thing applies, right? And by signing a contract with them, you sign a contract that you're not going to teach other content. So it's a choice between, are you going to go on your own or are you going to go with the official materials? My clients right now are interested in official materials. I'm trying to build a sort of a social following, and if the social following grows enough, then I might actually migrate potentially to another platform, right? You can see, like, with 122 or how many followers right now I have on YouTube, I wouldn't be able to survive on a platform like Pluralsight or Udemy or LinkedIn Learning, right? There just wouldn't be enough of a user base for me to basically base my career on that. But, once I get the user base, once I pretty much show enough knowledge, maybe that's going to be the next step. You are pretty limited in what you are allowed to do as an authorized instructor, both especially as far as AWS is concerned. They take their intellectual property very, 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 very seriously. So even having a YouTube channel and talking about AWS is kind of like, it's not really as clear as day what I can even talk about on a YouTube channel. I see it as, this is not a commercial channel, right? This is not a monetized channel. This is not a platform where I'm going to monetize it. So technically you can't sue me for zero. You can sue me for $0, right? Because I'm not commercializing this and not making money, right? That's my thinking. Now I'm trying to be honest here, right? They can take away my authorization at any moment in time. Yeah. They can definitely strip you of your authorized Amazon instructor credentials. I've seen people who got their Amazon authorized credentials removed. So it's not something that doesn't happen. Definitely a lot of people who have been on, I'm just going to call it different online platforms. I'm just not going to name the platforms. A lot of people who are on different platforms have had warnings where they've had, just information sent saying you are using AWS's intellectual property here on your website, right? And then there's a whole thing happening in the background. So yeah, it's not as clear as day as far as what you can teach outside of AWS's official materials. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they haven't complained about books, so I still write books, right? Yeah, that's the idea here, right? So they haven't complained about that. I mean, I used to make my own materials, right? When I did OpenStack training, right now it's just OpenStack custom training. So if there's any kind of custom requests, I used to have a training called OpenStack 101, Essentials 101, sort of an introductory training to OpenStack, and that definitely is a thing, right? So yeah. Jude, any plans to develop certification training courses? Again, because I am an authorized instructor and I'm contractually obligated to teach official materials, I don't have the ability to give public training courses, deliver public training courses that are not official from AWS. So that's the gist of it, right? I can give you advice. I can take you on and coach you with, like, we sit down, we have a one-on-one session of, we talk about how you can achieve your goals. I can recommend training for you, right? But I can't make training content and present it. That's the thing. Coaching would be awesome. Yeah, coaching is completely okay, right? As far as I'm right now aware, coaching is completely okay, and I'm definitely open in talking about coaching opportunities. Bobby, how important do you think Linux skills are for cloud engineers and architects? Very, very, very important. For architects and engineers and sysops people, if you don't have Linux skills, you're going to struggle with the cloud itself. The whole design principle is basically based around Linux solutions. Yeah, it's wrapped into this nice, graphical wrapper, or you have these templates that you can write and send up. But troubleshooting and trying to get to the core of any kind of issue is probably going to require Linux knowledge. I mean, both Linux and Windows, especially if you're running virtual machines, you can't avoid that. If you're going cloud native, then I would say Linux skills are less important. You just need to know how the cloud native solution works. If you have previous skills from, like, for example, you used to build a certain solution in an open source environment, like you built Swagger APIs before, and now you're sort of going into the cloud, that experience is like directly mirrored in the cloud, and you can start with serverless. Okay, Bobby, I mean basic versus medium versus advanced skill. Basic to medium is as is required. Basic, intermediate kind of level of Linux, enough that you can install updates. For troubleshooting, I would say intermediate skills. And if advanced skills, I understand Linux advanced skills as how to make your own packages and install modules that aren't available in the package manager. You're able to enable or disable kernel features and debug the kernel when you do that. Then advanced, pretty much not necessary. Basic, I would understand as you're able to log in, you understand the security, the way it works in Linux. You understand that everything in Linux is a file. You understand how to edit files with your favorite text editor. And you understand that when you make a change in a file, how that affects a certain service. And when we're talking intermediate, is more like you're able to configure complete applications and maintain them and install packages through a package manager and update them and secure them with security features. Right? I would say that is the level required. Going down to, tuning your kernel is not going to be required in cloud, because you do get Linux that is optimized for the cloud, which means no need to know that. I hope I answered that question. Are you planning for regular live sessions like this in the future? Yeah, I need to figure out how this works. Today was more like, I want to try it live. I've tried how streaming to YouTube and Twitch. I'm using restream.io, so it's a service that lets you stream to multiple channels at once. I wanted to stream straight to the two services at the same time, but I found that where I live, it's like a very rural area, and my internet uplink is just not there. So I'm using Restream.io to stream to Restream, and then it goes to YouTube and Twitch, and possibly it will stream later to other services. But yeah, definitely live sessions. I'm planning maybe like once a week to do a live session. Whenever I'm doing anything that's going to be sort of non-official courseware, which I can't record and stream and show you, I'm going to do live streams. Let's say maybe I'm going to build a solution or debug something or something like that, I might just kick in a live stream and record it and upload it, because that kind of is, it's interesting content, and I think that a lot of people will find valuable lessons in that. And if I'm just doing it for myself and it's just me learning, it doesn't make as much impact as if I have multiple people watching it and learning about what I'm doing. Okay, Jude, how important is the PythonGO, a programming language skill, to a cloud architect or engineer? Yes. Python is definitely a good language to know at a basic level, to understand what it does, to know what you can do with it, to be able to write some automation that you wouldn't write through a template like CloudFormation or Terraform or whatever. Let's say you want to automate a process where you have a Lambda function perform some kind of action. Here, either things like languages like Node, right? Very useful for any kind of responses on the web, any kind of interfaces that augment your static content. As an engineer, you would want to also maybe build Lambda functions to perform some kind of intelligent actions. So for example, you write a Python action that does security checks of your infrastructure, or a really cool Lambda function is for security. What we do sometimes is we've got role assumptions are fed to events as CloudWatch, and when a certain specific admin role is assumed, that triggers a Lambda function, and then Lambda function triggers a previously written we have people request access to assume a role, and they get written into a DynamoDB table, and the Lambda function looks at the table. If the user's there, it says okay, and it terminates, and if the user's not there, then it alerts to the security response team, or even can invalidate those credentials for that role assumption. So that's something that, as a cloud engineer, having that capacity to write 25-30 lines of Python that will perform that task is a huge benefit. Bobby, infrastructure as code fascinates me. Do you think one will have a good career prospect in that area if specialized? Yeah. Especially if you want to work in DevOps. DevOps teams are basically, very eager to get good infrastructure as code people. Especially if you're cross-platform, especially if you can adapt quickly to a new platform, if you can translate from one platform language to another, if you can easily switch from CloudFormation to CDK to Terraform and back to the command line. Definitely a very valuable position. So if that's your passion, yeah, definitely you're gonna have a lot of choice. For sure. You got a question. Does the multiple answer question in the exam determine how many right answers there are? No, it's you get them all right or fail. Right? If there's 3 possible answers, you have to select 3, and it's right or wrong. It's 0 or 50 points. There's no partial rights. There's no partial right or partially wrong answers. Jude, says, same here, seen a couple of materials in infrastructure as code online, and I'm really interested in as well. Yeah, if that's your passion, for sure, automation teams, DevOps teams that will be, looking for people who are going to write templates for self-consumption. So what the interesting part of infrastructure as code, if you're in a DevOps environment, you're going to write infrastructure as code to deploy the infrastructure to put the application on top of it, right? But then in some aspects, the DevOps teams might want to have those pre-written, especially if it's a large enterprise and they have a standardized way of writing their templates. They have specific teams that just write the templates. That's their day in, day out job. They write and test and develop templates for others to consume. and now you have the ability to be to go very deep into infrastructure as code, very deep into infrastructure as code, and that's a good position to be in also. You're welcome, Ara. 4 viewers. Woohoo! 4 viewers for our first live event. Very good. I was really worried I would be like alone. That I would be the only one talking to myself, which I do usually when I carry my camera around the street and everybody looks at me funny like, what is this guy doing? It's something to really get used to. It was just hard for me to start that. And the first content that I published was like February, but I've been doing this since December, and the first 3 months I was trying to create content and it was just like, no, it's just not coming out. Or I would have like a 20-second segment and then I would be like, what? So yeah, once you get a hang of it, you can just start talking and you can just walk and talk and do cool stuff. And everybody, thank you for commenting on that video where I asked for suggestions, really good suggestions, and I'm gonna really make that happen. I think both you, Bobby and Jude, commented on that video. Any good resources for systems architect mock exams? Yes, there are good resources for systems architect mock exams. Look at my systems architect video. Sorry, solutions architect video. Let me just bring up that link for you. Take a look at that video. Ara. This is the video. This is the solutions architect. Comments. So look in comments. Did I put it in comments? Wait. In the description, yeah, in the description I have WizLabs questions, right? Now some say WizLabs is not a good source of questions. Well, what I like with their questions is they have a good explanation, and at the end of the practice exam they will give you a domain breakdown and tell you you're good at security, but you're not very good at provisioning, for example. So they will give you a breakdown of the domains, and the WizLabs exam is pretty good. Now, if you want to test yourself, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say exam topics. Now, exam topics, it's a free resource and it's got questions that are very relevant to the exam, but there is no right answer. A lot of the times exam topics will not have the right answer. Okay, so be careful when you're doing exam topics. They have a comments button, and in the comments people will usually, discuss which is the right answer here. Now, a lot of the times those people are wrong, right? And that's the real problem with exam topics. It's not a study. It's not for studying. It's for testing yourself, right? And where you want to be at exam topics is where you go through a set of questions. You take 65 questions and you think of it as a real world exam, and then you note down the answer. You note down the questions that you don't know the answer to. You should be able to know the answer at the point where you're getting ready to go to the exam. And I was going to talk about this in a future video. I was going to show how it's a really cool resource, but what to be careful on that site, right? I use that as a resource where I check my knowledge. Before I go for an exam, I check my knowledge. So tomorrow I have an exam. and I'm scared. I'm dreading that exam, and I don't know what to do. Honestly, it's like it's at the edge of my capabilities as far as, thank you, Ara. Machine learning speciality is, I think it's probably at the edge of my understanding of machine learning. I don't know if I'm ready yet. I've been trying to figure this out for about a year and a half, and everybody has their limitations. I think I might have met my match. I don't know. We'll see tomorrow. You'll see a video about it. So, be sure to subscribe. Yeah, machine learning. Yeah, straight after SA Associate. Woo, that's brave, Ara. If you're in machine learning, then yeah. If you have experience with machine learning, if you've been in the field for a few years, then yes, because it's not as important. I mean, SA will prepare you for a good understanding of the platform, a good understanding of how to do security, how VPCs are connected to the security group, is connected to the EC2, is connected to the endpoint, is connected to S3, right? That's what SA does, but machine learning is more about, the statistic theory and all the algorithms and all the models used, and whether you're looking for precision or recall, or it's image recognition or text, or I don't even know anymore. I've been studying so hard that I'm right now at this point in time, my head is just like, and then we'll see tomorrow if that works. Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it. Jude, you watched video on exam prep, and our suggestions for SA Pro bundle is really a challenge. SA Pro plus advanced networking plus security. Yes. That's a challenge. Confusion matrix. Yeah, my head is a confusion matrix right now. I have both my false positives and my false negatives are pretty high at this point, so I don't know if I'm gonna be. I don't know if I should use this confusion matrix for my exam. We'll see tomorrow. Yeah, Jude. I think that they fit together. In my personal opinion, the knowledge areas that they cover fit together very well. So if you want to study in bulk, solutions architect professional, networking and security are definitely very, very related to each other. You might get questions that are completely similar on all of them. As a solutions architect pro, they will ask you, intricate questions about security and complex questions about networking, about direct connect, about VPNs. And those two areas are covered by security and advanced networking also. With advanced networking, like BGP and direct connect and VPNs and, how to do stuff like that. So that's something that's in advanced networking. I actually found advanced networking to be not that hard, honestly. I wouldn't rate it even as hard as the SA Pro, in my opinion. But I do have some networking experience in the back end, right? I have been working with networking since God knows when, long time ago. So maybe that's because of my background. Security, if you've been working with AWS for a long time, all the security practices, if you've been doing them by best practices, again, it's not going to be that difficult, right? The SA exam is more, the SA professional exam is more like difficult from a point of view where you have to know these services that you might have not used before, right? You might have not used Kinesis before, but you have to know intricate details about Kinesis. Right? You might have not used what else? Like, you might be using like you might have not used Lambda, for example, but you need to know stuff about Lambda and other. I don't even remember right now at this point what the intricate details are. Bobby, from a programming background and networking scares you. Yeah. I'm from an infrastructure background and programming scares me. Yeah. Networking is, it's just, you know, it's experience. A lot of it is experience. There isn't even a course in the official AWS courseware. There isn't a course for the networking exam, right? Time for a commercial break. Buy my book, AWS Certified Advanced Networking Specialty Exam Guide. That's for you, Bobby. But it assumes that you're familiar with networking, so not for you, Bobby. If networking scares you, no. Then go back and associate sysops. There's a bit of networking in here. Again, not enough networking to not scare you. Networking is scary. It's just scary. Yeah, as a developer, I believe that you would be at least intimidated by networking. But from a developer's point of view, with the developer programming background, infrastructure as code is like super exciting, because infrastructure as code really empowers developers to build solutions. And I say sometimes, you know, if you have a developer's background, you don't need to push yourself and try to achieve the networking certificate, because as a developer, will you really use that ever? Will you really be the one in charge of setting up a direct connection between your office and AWS? Right? Adding architecting pro to it, maybe, right? That's, as a developer, having an architect pro level certificate, then you're like well-rounded for cloud, right? You can architect solutions and you can write code for them, right? Great. But do you really need that speciality, right? Do you really need big data or data analytics or machine learning? I mean, even me as an instructor, I don't know if I'm ever gonna even teach machine learning at this point. I mean, that's because I'm unsure, because I've got an exam tomorrow and I'm nervous and I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm, you know, trying to do a live YouTube thing, and everybody will get overwhelmed by a certain subject that will be outside of your comfort zone, right? And I mean, I personally like to challenge myself with something that's outside of my comfort zone, right? And I appreciate the challenge, but then right before the exam, in the days coming up to the exam, I become really unsure of myself, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna fail this, and then I'm like, you know, reading white papers and running through test questions and you know, trying to fill up as much, trying to do flashcards, you know, and yeah, it's crazy. All right, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time for coming to see this. Yeah, it's a great time in when you start a YouTube channel. It's a great time. You can really see who's actually a subscriber and who's interested in the topics. And yeah, I'm sorry that the other two people who who usually watch my videos haven't showed up, but thank you very much for showing up. Bobby, Ara, Jude, you guys are great. If there's one last question, I'll take that question. Otherwise, I'm going to say enjoy your weekend. I'm definitely going to try. As soon as my exam is over, I'm going to go grab a beer. If anybody doesn't, if anybody minds that I grab a beer after the exam, then, you know, that's up to you. All right, Bobby, thanks for being here. All right, I'm going to end it now. See ya, guys.